Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new NVIDIA daily update video. So today, as per usual, let's talk about NVIDIA stock. Let's talk about what has happened to the stock. Is this bad? Is it all over? Or is this just a potentially massive bear trap moving into really the rest of this weekend? Honestly, the rest of this month, really, right? So let's talk about it. I'll give you my thoughts moving forward and all that good stuff. So as per usual, if you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. This is not financial advice and I am not a financial advisor. And of course, if you do enjoy my analysis, I do share my thoughts, etc. on the charts every single day. The market is open for just $3 a month. Link is below in the description of the video for the YouTube membership. Mainly on Tesla stocks. Sometimes I'll share other stocks as well that I see that are interesting, of course. Or for $5 a month, you get access to all of that plus NVIDIA daily updates as well. But jumping into it, NVIDIA closing the day down, unfortunately, 1.7%, closing at pretty much 132 on the dot, which compared to the market is going to be a bit of an underperformance, unfortunately, as semis are still, at least NVIDIA's, and even AMD, but NVIDIA especially, still finding some issues, right? Still finding some problemos over here. So let's talk about it, right? So let's get this obvious stuff out of the way, right? Obviously, we have the market bias turning red, right? That's not ideal, right? The market bias has been green pretty much ever since this rally from 116 all the way up here, right? And now officially it turned red. That was my first, like I mentioned, sign that, I'm not too confident about it, right? But there was potential. Like I said, there was potential. We could have held it, and this could have been potentially a good setup if we broke out of this little wedge that was forming on the 1 hour that I shared a while ago, right? Remember this one here where it was forming something like this, right? This could have been a potential nice little situation for the bulls to set up, right? But unfortunately, it ended up being a bearish wedge instead. Sometimes it can go either way. Unfortunately, it ended up going the bearish way, and we obviously continued following through. Now, the main concern, of course, is, well, are we breaking down, right? Are we breaking down out of this massive, massive trend line? That's the main concern. And of course, there's also the concern of this massive head and shoulders pattern that, you can make arguments. It's getting pretty damn close to playing out, right? Closing at 132 is, man, on some serious thin ice. So this is how I see it moving forward. Now, obviously, I want to make it clear. I could be completely wrong. It's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, right? Just my thoughts. But I personally want this to be a bear trap. I really do want this to be a bear trap, but I'm not going to go out on a limb here and assume it's going to be until proven otherwise. What do I mean by that, right? So there's a lot of good ways to enter NVIDIA, and unfortunately, it's not giving any good entries. Now, obviously, you can potentially get an entry down here, right? If even if it comes back down to, let's say, 131 to even 130, pretty good entry just because the stop loss is so close, right? But, we are arguably peeking our head down below this trend line. And now, let's take a look at AMD very quickly. What happened to AMD when it broke this massive trend line? Let's zoom out over here, right? Massive, massive trend line at AMD, right? And it bounced several times. And you can see here as we zoom in, it recently tried to bounce as well, right? Many times over here until it finally gapped down, turned it into a resistance, and then moved its way all the way to pretty much the low of the day. And then it corrected down pretty much 10%, more or less, after breaking down below that trend line. And NVIDIA's kind of around that same spot right now where it's on extremely thin ice. Now, it's not guaranteed yet, and I would say, there needs to be a bit more confirmation because it's still not super clear because, again, my trend line isn't drawn to like pixel perfection. Just keep that in mind, of course. But the fact that it's this close and, kind of peeking its head underneath the line, more or less, is a bit of concern. It's a bit of a concern for sure. Now, if we lose, in my opinion, 130 to 132, and we start closing a daily candle below 130 to 132, that would probably mean that we most likely play this out. In fact, even the way it's looking right now, I do lean bearish a little bit. That doesn't mean I will go in puts. It doesn't mean I'm going to go short NVIDIA or anything like that. I just stay away until either it comes back down to a target I'm willing to buy at, but assuming this obviously, plays out and corrects down even further, or it ends up being a bear trap. Now, let's talk about the bear trap scenario. What if this actually ends up being a bear trap, right? What would I want to see to potentially re-enter NVIDIA for a bullish move back up, right? Well, there's a few things I'll be looking for. Number one, on the 15-minute chart, you can see here, we are essentially in this large descending channel, right? Where we're just pretty much zigzagging back and forth between this channel more or less, right? So step number one, I would want to see for NVIDIA to even remotely consider starting to long the stock essentially is a break out of this channel, which, assuming it happens, let's say tomorrow, essentially above 135 to 136. That's the first step I'd want to see for NVIDIA for me to start gaining confidence in the bulls once again. Or at the very least, a bullish daily candle reversal, which we're not seeing just yet either. That's step number one, breaking out of this 15-minute downward channel. Again, 135 to 136. 136 to be safe. It needs to get broken and reclaimed essentially as support. That's step number one. Step number two, this one's a little slower, but in my opinion, it's even more confidence inspiring if it actually does happen, of course. Let me go ahead and move this up a bit. Is essentially going to be a break out of this daily downward channel, or not channel necessarily, but just the daily rejection trend line, right? Where it started at all-time highs, rejected us here as well, got kind of close to it, but not so much over here just yet. But essentially a break out of this downward trend line resistance would be step number two for a bit, for even extra confidence, right? That we are ready to reverse. And if that were to happen anytime this week, that would be closer to like very, very, very high 130s to honestly pretty much $140 per share, depending on when it happens. But about $140 per share is what I'd want to see reclaimed on NVIDIA on the daily time frame with the daily close above, for me to also start regaining even further confidence in the bulls and that the stock is actually ready to make its move higher, as opposed to potentially what it's potentially looking like right now. Really just not looking too hot, right? Not looking too confidence inspiring, to be completely honest with you. Again, this could be absolutely a bear trap. This absolutely could reverse. We could get a gap up tomorrow. Some news comes out, whatever the case may be, and we do make our way back up. Absolutely a possibility. But again, I'm not in a, I don't feel like I don't feel like I want to try and bottom tick this one. Like, I'll be completely honest, because if this does correct, if this does actually play out this bearish pattern, if this does break this trend line, if this does execute this head and shoulders pattern, this will correct pretty substantially, right? This can easily correct, assuming this happens, like well into the 1-teens, right? Like, this is like a rough measured move of this bearish head and shoulders pattern, assuming of course it executes. It can easily make its way back down into the 1-teens, right around these pivot points, right around here, right? Oops, didn't go through. Right, like easily, it can easily come down to about 115, give or take. Like, that absolutely becomes a very, very realistic possibility for NVIDIA if this plays out. That's why, the risk reward, if you have a good stop loss, is pretty decent down here, I guess. But there's just other plays I'd rather be looking at right now that are, more bullish. That doesn't make me have to question whether or not this is even going to work out or not, right? Because right now, if I were to enter NVIDIA here, I would absolutely be questioning it, right? I would be definitely questioning and wondering, is this even going to work out, or is this going to play out, or is this, man, this is on thin ice. I'm not very confident about this play for the long side. So that's kind of the way I'm eyeballing NVIDIA right now, and that's probably the easiest way to look at it. And the most interesting thing about this is the fact that SMH, which is that semi ETF, right? It's looking pretty good. In fact, it's actually green today, despite NVIDIA and AMD both red. This thing is not only green today, but it's so close to breaking out. So is this going to break out and rally without the king kind of leading the way? I don't know. Hard to say. I mean, so far it seems to be the case. So far this thing is rocketing up while NVIDIA is doing the exact opposite. So let's see. Maybe the mantle and the torches get passed. Who knows for sure? But SMH looking pretty spicy, looking pretty good. Like, not, this is the situation where I'll potentially enter or wait for a breakout and feel pretty good about it. NVIDIA, as it stands right now, not as good about it, right? Not as good about it. And again, I want to make it clear. I hope this is a bear trap. I really do. I really want to play NVIDIA. I really want to buy the stock. I really want to see the stock rally to $160 per share. I just need to see more confidence. I need to see more things to convince me that that's going to happen. And again, those two things are simply 136 and 140. Those two levels need to get reclaimed. 136 is step number one. 140 is step number two. But until that happens, it's a bit of a pass for me, right? I'll be honest, it's a bit of a pass for me. I'm just kind of sitting on the sidelines and just observing, letting it do its thing and seeing what happens. Now, obviously, we also talked about that 4 hour, remember the 4 hour with the bands, right? Yeah, it is very oversold. But the reason I'm not playing this and the reason I played it back here is because we weren't this close to potentially a massive breakdown on this trend line and a potential playing out this essentially massive head and shoulders pattern, right? Those weren't really risks. Right now, they are risks. They are absolutely massive risks, and it's just not a risk I'm just personally willing to take. That's just really all it comes down to, right? But yeah, also with Tesla consistently rallying, you can make the argument the fact that all the money is just being pumped into Tesla essentially right now, and none of the attention is on NVIDIA. That is also a possibility, right? So let's see. Let's see how this plays out. Again, not a fan of the way it looks right now. I need to see a bit more confirmation. If I see the confirmation, if I see something I like, of course, I'll keep my members updated. I'll still update on the video. It'll just be delayed, of course. But that's just the way I'm looking at it, guys. Just to put it simply, it's not very confidence inspiring. I wouldn't say it's confirmed bearish yet. I wouldn't say that's it, it's over. It's going down to 115 just yet. But it just feels like all it needs is that one more push to the bearish side, like one more push from the bears, and it feels like it's there. Not there just yet, but man, is it close. You know what I mean? It is very, 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 very close. Take a look at options flow very quickly. You can see options flow. The bulls are still stepping in, but you know, it's pretty mixed, right? You can see as I kind of scroll through here very slowly, you can see pretty mixed throughout the day, right? Not as convincing as it usually is for the bulls, right? You usually see bulls just millions upon millions of calls coming in, nothing coming in whatsoever on NVIDIA to that extent at least. And in fact, also it feels like it's almost half red, half green. And if we go to the black box, 40 million confirmed bearish flow on NVIDIA today as well. So we have CPI, not CPI, we have FOMC on Wednesday. Let's see how it plays out, guys. Let's see how it plays out. I'm not excited about this price action. It doesn't make me excited to jump in on NVIDIA. I did take some L's, I'll be completely honest, you know, for some transparency. I did absolutely take some L's because I did think that this thing can potentially find its footing. It didn't. Obviously, I'm glad I took those L's. In the morning, actually, I took the L's pretty much as the market opened. I ended up taking L's. Again, tiny small percentage of my portfolio, like literally 0.2%, I think, or something like that. Very small percentage of my portfolio, naturally. But nonetheless, L is an L. It is what it is. And I'm glad I did because it just, you know, I'm not getting the confidence I want to see on the stock. And, you know, until I see it, I'm probably going to stay away. It's just that simple. But again, 136, 140, probably the main two levels I'm eyeballing for that bullish confirmation for me personally to long the stock. And I think that's about it. I don't think there's that much more to update really on NVIDIA. I think that's the majority of it. So yeah, let me know what you think down below. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you for the next one. Peace.